Okay, so, immigration policy has been in the news a lot lately.
Yeah.
And especially these new rules about sensitive locations.
Right.
And, like how that's impacting schools and churches.
Yeah.
So we are going to really take a deep dive on that today.
Okay.
And we're going to use some recent news from Chicago.
Sounds good.
To kind of get us started.
Okay.
We've got some excerpts from an article about Chicago public schools.
Okay.
And the Catholic Church and how they're responding to some of these new immigration directives from the Trump administration.
Yeah. Okay.
So really the question is how is this playing out, on the ground in Chicago?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fascinating to see, how local institutions are pushing back against this kind of pretty major shift at the federal level.
Okay. So just to kind of catch everyone up.
Yeah.
The big change here.
Yeah.
Is the Trump administration revoked a Biden-era policy that protected places like schools and churches from ICE enforcement actions.
So Immigration and Customs Enforcement, if you're not familiar.
Right, exactly, with the acronym.
Yeah.
And so, obviously this has created a lot of anxiety, but Chicago seems to be taking a pretty strong stance against the change.
Yeah. The head of Chicago Public Schools, Pedro Martinez, he made it very clear that they will not cooperate with ICE unless agents have a warrant.
Right.
And he emphasized that schools, they don't even ask about students' or parents' immigration status.
I was really struck by how forcefully he made that point.
Right.
I remember there was that quote where he said, CPS will not allow ICE agents to access CPS facilities.
Yeah.
It felt...
It was a line in the sand.
A real line in the sand.
Yeah.
And they're even going further, right? Yeah. They're training teachers.
Yeah.
On how to handle situations
Yeah.
involving ICE agents.
Yep.
What to do if a parent is detained at school.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very proactive approach.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows how seriously they're taking this and the lengths that they're willing to go to protect their community.
It makes you wonder, though, if this could lead to some legal battles down the line.
Right.
Is there any precedent for this kind of pushback?
Yeah, there definitely is.
Against federal immigration.
Historically, the idea of sensitive locations, it kind of goes back to this idea of wanting to ensure that people can access essential services without fear. Schools, hospitals, places of worship, places where you should just feel safe to go, regardless of your immigration status.
Yeah.
And, the debate's always been about how to balance that protection.
With, the need to allow law enforcement to do their jobs.
So this new directive from the Trump administration, does this signal a broader
it seems to be
shift in immigration policy?
Part of a larger trend towards stricter enforcement.
Okay.
We've seen this administration push for various measures aimed at reducing illegal immigration. And, this revocation of the sensitive locations policy is kind of in line with that.
Okay. So this could have some serious consequences then.
Yeah, absolutely.
For immigrant communities.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
If people are afraid to interact with any institution because they fear attracting ICE's attention, that could have a ripple effect on everything, from healthcare to education to even reporting crimes.
Right. Yeah, that chilling effect is a huge concern.
It erodes trust in institutions. Yeah.
They're supposed to serve everyone.
Yeah.
And it can create just this climate of fear and uncertainty.
Right. And you also have to consider
Yeah.
the potential legal challenges.
Right.
I mean, this kind of directive could very well be challenged in court.
Right.
And then we might see lawsuits argue that it oversteps federal authority or violates individuals' rights.
Yeah, definitely a possibility.
So speaking of institutions and community response,
Yeah.
We also saw Cardinal Cupich,
Yeah.
who heads the Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago,
Right.
come out pretty strongly
Yeah.
against this policy change.
And that's particularly interesting, given the historical role of churches as sanctuary spaces.
Mm-hmm.
The Catholic Church has been actively supporting legislation in Illinois to protect immigrant rights.
Right.
And, they've made it very clear that they oppose ICE entering churches for enforcement purposes. I hadn't really considered that historical context, like churches as sanctuaries.
Right.
I mean, that just adds in a layer of a complexity.
It does. And it kind of, speaks to the ethical dimensions of this as well. How do we balance the need for security and law enforcement with the moral imperative to protect vulnerable populations? I mean, this is a question that goes way beyond legal arguments.
Yeah.
It really delves into our core values as a society.
So we've got these new directives that have really shaken.
And it'll be really interesting to see how this unfolds, in Chicago and what implications it has for other communities around the country.
Right.
I mean, this isn't just a local story.
Right.
This is a national one.
Absolutely. It really raises some big questions about the balance of power between federal and local authorities.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you, the listener, should really think about as you follow this story.
Yeah.
What's happening in your community?
Right.
How are people responding to these changes in immigration policy? There's a lot to unpack here.
There is.
And it's a conversation
Definitely
that I think we need to keep having.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.